The Grumman F-14 Tomcat, a supersonic, twin-engine, variable geometry wing, two-seat fighter aircraft, stands as one of the most celebrated, controversial, and recognizable fighter jets in the history of aviation, its development deeply rooted in Cold War geopolitics, the failures of the TFX F-111B program, and the U.S. Navy's urgent demand for an aircraft capable of defending carrier battle groups from the long-range Soviet bomber and cruise missile threat. Its story beginning in the mid-1960s when the Navy rejected the F-111B due to its poor maneuverability, excessive weight, and unsuitability for carrier operations, leading Congress and the Pentagon to authorize a new program called VFX Naval Fighter Experimental that sought a long-range interceptor capable of carrying the massive AIM-54 Phoenix missile, an aircraft with both speed and agility, capable of dogfighting as well as long-range defense, and it was Grumman, already a naval aviation powerhouse with its legacy of cats, such as the F-4F Wildcat, F-6F Hellcat, and F-9F Panther, that won the competition in 1968 with what would become the F-14 Tomcat, an aircraft named to honor both the Tomcat callsign tradition and legendary Grumman Vice President Tom Connolly, who had testified before Congress about the deficiencies of the F-111B and fought hard for a proper Navy fighter, its first prototype taking to the skies on December 21, 1970, with test pilot Robert Smith at the controls, and though early flights saw problems including crashes that delayed testing, the Tomcat quickly proved its revolutionary potential, entering service officially in 1974 with VF 1-inch Wolfpack and VF 2-inches Bounty Hunters, aboard the USS Enterprise CVN-65, instantly becoming the most advanced and capable fleet air defense fighter in the world, with its defining feature being its variable geometry wings, which could sweep from 20 degrees for maximum lift during carrier launches and landings to 68 degrees for high-speed dash, automatically controlled by a computer or manually by the pilot, enabling unmatched versatility across flight regimes, a design choice that gave the Tomcat an almost science fiction aura in the eyes of the public and aviation enthusiasts. The aircraft's airframe was large and powerful, measuring 62 feet 9 inches in length, a wingspan varying between 64 feet unswept and 38 feet swept, standing 16 feet high, with a maximum takeoff weight of over 74,000 pounds, twin vertical tails for stability, and robust tricycle landing gear built to withstand the brutal stresses of carrier operations, while its tandem two-seat cockpit housed the pilot in front and the radar intercept officer (RIO) in the back, a division of labor necessary to exploit its avionics and radar systems, the most formidable of which was the Hughes AN/AWG-9 radar, a pulse Doppler set capable of detecting targets out to 200 nautical miles, tracking 24 simultaneously, and engaging 6 at once with the AIM-54 Phoenix missile, the world's first true beyond visual range BVR, long arm, of air combat, each missile a 13-foot, 1,000-pound behemoth with a range of 115 miles and speed of Mach 5, making it possible for the Tomcat to destroy enemy bombers long before they could threaten the fleet, a feature specifically designed to counter the Soviet 295-inches Bear and 222M backfire bombers armed with cruise missiles, though the Tomcat was also armed with AIM-7 Sparrow semi-active radar missiles, AIM-9 Sidewinders for close-in dogfights, and a 6-barrel 20mm M61 Vulcan cannon with 675 rounds of ammunition, giving it lethality at all ranges, and while its early F-14A variant was powered by two Pratt & Whitney TF-30 turbofan engines producing 20,900 pounds of thrust each with afterburner, these engines quickly proved problematic, being prone to compressor stalls and flameouts during high angle of attack maneuvers, leading to a reputation for unpredictability and causing numerous accidents, yet skilled pilots learned to fly the engine and avoid hazardous flight envelopes, and later upgrades with the General Electric F110E400 engines in the F-14B and F-14D variants solved these issues, producing 27,000 pounds of thrust per engine, dramatically improving performance, enabling sustained supersonic flight without afterburner, and making the Tomcat far more reliable. Operationally, the F-14 entered service at a time when the Cold War was at its height, and its first decade was characterized by endless patrols, intercepts, and confrontations with Soviet bombers, reconnaissance planes, and fighters shadowing U.S. carrier battle groups, with countless iconic photographs showing Tomcats flying wingtip to wingtip with Tu-95 Bears or Su-24 Fencers, a cat-and-mouse game that played out across the North Atlantic, Mediterranean, and Pacific, the Tomcat serving not only as a deterrent but also as the face of American naval power projection, and its combat record began in earnest in 1981 during the Gulf of Sidra incident, when two F-14s from VF 41-inches Black Aces shot down two Libyan Su-22 fitters with sidewinders after being fired upon. followed in 1989 by another Gulf of Sidra clash in which 2 Tomcats engaged and destroyed 2 Libyan MiG-23 floggers, both encounters ending without loss to the Tomcats and cementing their reputation. And during Operation Desert Storm in 1991, the F-14 flew hundreds of sorties. Though restrictions on Phoenix missile use limited its role mostly to escort and reconnaissance, yet it still scored at least 1 confirmed kill. An Iraqi Mi-8 helicopter downed with a Sidewinder, while its TARP's tactical airborne reconnaissance pod system proved invaluable for gathering intelligence. And as the 1990s progressed, upgrades allowed the Tomcat to transition into a multi-role strike fighter, integrating the LANTIRN targeting pod for precision-guided munitions, a transformation that saw the aircraft drop laser-guided bombs in the Balkans, Afghanistan, and Iraq, roles once reserved for dedicated bombers, proving the adaptability of a design originally conceived as a fleet interceptor. The F-14 had 3 primary variants. The F-14A, the original and most numerous, plagued by engine issues but nevertheless effective. The F-14B, initially called F-14A Plus before 1991, which incorporated GE F-110 engines and improved avionics, and the ultimate F-14D, Super Tomcat, introduced in the early 1990s, featuring digital avionics, glass cockpit displays, the AN/APG-71 radar, an improved derivative of the AWG-9 Advanced IRST infrared search and track, and compatibility with modern precision-guided weapons, making it a formidable multi-role fighter comparable in many ways to 4th-generation peers such as the F-15E Strike Eagle, though fewer than 40 new-build F-14Ds were produced due to budget constraints, with others being upgraded from existing airframes. Despite its capabilities, the Tomcat faced criticism throughout its career for its immense maintenance demands, with each flight hour requiring between 40 and 60 man-hours of upkeep, making it expensive to operate compared to newer fighters like the F/A-18 Hornet and later Super Hornet. And as the Cold War ended, budget cuts, aging airframes, and the desire for a cheaper, more versatile multi-role aircraft led the Navy to retire the F-14 in 2006, its final operational flight occurring on October 4, 2006, when VF-31 inches Tomcatters landed their last jets aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt, closing a 32-year chapter of dominance. And though retired from U.S. service, the Tomcat remains in active duty with the Islamic Republic of Iran Air Force, which received 79 aircraft in the 1970s before the revolution, continuing to operate and even upgrade them with locally developed avionics and weapons, including reverse-engineered versions of the Phoenix missile, making Iran the only other nation ever to field the Tomcat. And reports suggest that Iranian F-14s scored kills against Iraqi aircraft during the Iran-Iraq War, including MiG-23s, Su-22s, and even MiG-25s, demonstrating the aircraft's combat power in non-U.S. service. Beyond its combat record, the F-14 achieved immortality in popular culture, most famously as the star of the 1986 blockbuster film Top Gun, in which Tom Cruise's portrayal of Maverick, flying the Tomcat in dazzling dogfighting sequences, elevated the aircraft to global stardom, boosting Navy recruitment and cementing the F-14's place in public imagination, its variable sweep wings and thunderous afterburners becoming synonymous with American airpower. And interestingly, while variable geometry wings were once seen as the future of fighter design, the Tomcat would become the last U.S. fighter built with such a system, as advancements in aerodynamics and engine technology made them unnecessary. Yet no other fighter combined the drama, elegance, and power of the Tomcat's wing sweep in flight. Technically, the aircraft was capable of Mach 2.34 at altitude, had a service ceiling above 50,000 feet, a combat radius of 500 miles, and a ferry range exceeding 1,600 miles, carried up to 14,500 pounds of ordnance, and could climb at 45,000 feet per minute, figures that placed it among the elite fighters of its generation, comparable to the F-15 Eagle but optimized for carrier operations, with features such as robust landing gear, a tailhook, and a nose strut launch bar for catapult launches, all designed to withstand the rigors of life at sea. Among the countless interesting facts, the F-14 was the first U.S. fighter to achieve a successful shoot-down with a long-range radar-guided missile in combat. It was nicknamed Turkey by some crews because of its ungainly look with wings extended and flaps down. It was the last American fighter designed before computer-aided design became standard, relying heavily on slide rule calculations, and it was used in NASA experiments to test aerodynamic concepts, though most famously it remains a symbol of Cold War power projection, remembered with affection by the pilots and crews who served with it, many of whom insist it was the most capable and thrilling fighter they ever flew. In terms of cost, the F-14 was expensive both to build and operate, with unit costs around $38 million in the 1980s, equivalent to $100 to $120 million today, though some estimates place the fully equipped F-140 closer to $70 to $80 million in contemporary dollars, and operating costs of up to $44,000 per flight hour, which contributed heavily to its retirement, though supporters argue that no replacement has fully matched the Tomcat's unique combination of long-range interception, carrier-based adaptability, and sheer presence, and today preserved F-14s can be found in museums and naval air stations across the United States, serving as monuments to a remarkable era of aviation innovation. While in the minds of aviation enthusiasts worldwide, the Tomcat lives on as a fighter that perfectly embodied speed, power, versatility, and cultural impact, an aircraft that defended fleets, won battles, inspired generations, and carved out a legacy that remains unrivaled, making the Grumman F-14 Tomcat not merely a fighter jet but a legend whose roar still echoes across history.